two words. There's salat, zakat, and then another word which is infaq. Isn't that sadaqah?
It's not the same word as sadaqah.
I've never heard of that word. What's that?
Infaq, it comes from nafaqa, which means to spend.
So you have to do your sadaqah, which is you have to give your 1/5 for the audience, for those people, and then you get sadaqah, which I understand, which is whatever you like. You know, if someone gives you something or that's something to you, and you give it up to him, okay, you can have it. It's like the sadaqah. But now you say another word,
infaq, which is spend openly. Because the thing is, if let's say for example, I'm wealthy, and my family are well taken care of, and I had this thought the other day after payday, got a nice bonus, and I thought, you know what, there isn't really anything that I need for myself. I've got everything. I've got a house, I've got a very full stomach, got a fridge which is full of food, all bills are paid for. There isn't really anything that I need. At that stage, I then have spare money that I can actually go out and I can do things for people who don't have any food. I mean, the winters at the moment are ridiculously cold. And can you imagine, for example, the people that are sleeping in the streets? So being able to spend that money, knowing that this is going to benefit somebody else, I think is an important thing.
But that still doesn't answer my question. What I mean is there's sadaqah and zakat, right? We know zakat is obligatory, right? Everybody agree? Zakat is obligatory.
We have different opinions about what zakat is.
Okay. All right, but Allah says salat and zakat, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's another place in the Quran where Allah says that if someone owes you money and you give it up to them as a sadaqah, or in my opinion, if you do something good for someone outside now the zakat issue, then it's sadaqah, like do something or give something. But now there comes another word in here, which is sounds the same like.
Well, it's infaq. Jamal, I mean, to get a clarification, if you look at chapter 2, verse 219.
2 verse 219.
Chapter 2, verse 219. It says.
219.
They ask you how much they should spend.
Yeah.
And the word is infaq. Yunfiqun. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. I'll look at that. Okay.
It's exactly as Yasin said. Kul al-af. Say what you can let go.
Okay.
Which is precisely what Yasin said.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Makes sense? Any questions?
Just clarification. So, is your conclusion that there could be a legitimate way to perform salah without any physical ritual?
No, I haven't concluded, by the way. But at the moment, my understanding is that there's another dimension to it, which is there's a ritual aspect and there's a non-ritual aspect. So for me, I would do a combination of both, provided that I'm not just performing the ritual aspect and I forget about the inner aspect, or the aspect of me actually working within the community.
What about the other way around?
The other way around? Again, I think the ritual has its place. I think the ritual has its place because, you know, it depends upon how you look at the ritual. It all comes down to what you place the pressure on. If, for example, there's too much ritual and not enough doing, then it's out of balance. So when we talk about it being a balanced salah, there's got to be a balance between the different approaches you actually take on. So I don't think, again, it's the multitude path thing. There are many different ways of actually doing this, which again comes down to the thing that, you know, we will all have different opinions.
So
It's inevitable.
when you mentioned that you agree that there are certain times of the day where the salah should be performed, correct?
I agree that there are certain times of the day when you can perform salah.
Can.
I'm not so sure whether I should be prescriptive on it because I haven't come to the full conclusion. This is just my work, you see. So.
I see. So you agree that there are times during the day when one could observe the contact prayers, and you agree that.
I wouldn't look at it as being contact prayers in the sense that you're making contact with God per se, but
That's what I understood salat to mean, contact.
Yeah, but the contact aspect isn't just between you and God. You're also contacting the community when you're in a communal gathering, for example, and you're contacting the people who are around you and allowing the discussion. So, for example, if we're getting commandments from what we're actually doing, if, for example, we've got, let's say we're all sitting around here, and for example, my brother, he's poor, but I haven't got the money to support him. As a community, we're here, and we perform the Salah, we look at the Quran, he needs help. What can we actually do to help? Can we get gathered around and actually move forward?
You believe that's Salat?
I would say that's an aspect of Salah. I don't think, you know, when we say that is Salah, I don't think there is such a thing as that is Salah. I don't think we can just put our finger on it and say, okay, it's not going to move from there.
So what about the references in the Quran that specifically mention bowing and prostrating?
Which is where the ritualized aspect of being able to program yourself come into it.
The ritualized aspect of being able to
if let's say, for example, we have the community that get together, for example, and we set up a ritual that's agreed between us. We stand, we bow, you know, we prostrate. But we also involve within that same ritual the aspect of discussing with people using the Quran about finding solutions.
So you believe that there's times during the day where one could perform these actions?
Yeah.
You believe that there is a place where one could bow and prostrate? Okay, I see. So when you, for example, read verses where it talks about Abraham with his son at praying or performing doing something,
performing ritual.
what exactly do you mentally picture that? Do you think or when, for example, I think there's a verse in the Quran that, is this correct, where Muhammad was asked to change the direction of Qibla?
Yes, there is.
So, what exactly do you think that? I'm just trying to
No, I understand.
gain some perspective as to where it is coming from. So, what exactly do you think?
But may I just interject? The words Salat is not actually in that verse. It's chapter 2, verse 144. That's not actually there. It's kind of inferred. That is Jerusalem.
No, but I'm certain that there are other verses in the Quran which do specifically mention the word Salat.
Vis-a-vis Qibla.
No, vis-a-vis Qibla, just
Salat.
Is that verse the one that talks about Al-Aqsa, which means far away?
It's inferred. No.
Which means far away.
No, that's chapter 17, verse 1.
No, Aqsa.
Chapter 17, verse 1 is Aqsa.
Okay.
But the Qibla is 2144, as Abbas pointed out. But I'm just saying that Salat, you can infer it, but it's not actually there. So Yasin may not read it as it's there.
Yeah, I see it.
So,
there are other verses in the Quran that specifically mention Salat. I'm just trying to gain that understanding as if you don't believe in performing the physical action of prayer, then what is it that you picture, how is it that you mentally compute that verse, you know, or which mentions Salat? Like what exactly do you, I don't understand. Because I'm programmed now to a point where I know that in the morning I have to get out of bed and I have to perform a physical action. Which involves bowing and prostrating.
What do you have in mind when you're doing that?
Well, I think of God. Indeed, Salat means contact. Indeed, the first verse of the Quran, which I pray, which I recite in my prayer, is Al-Fatiha, which is the key. So there is almost a metaphorical correlation between that physical and also the recitation of the action.
Exactly.
And then that incorporates the bowing and the prostrating. It also incorporates the time of the day, which is specifically mentioned in the Quran. It talks about, there are many verses in the Quran, people who consistently observe the contact prayers, and it's and I think also, irrespective of one's perspective.
You're saying consistently observes the contact prayers because that's the translation you're reading. But if you go to the Arabic, it says consistently observes, consistently established Salat. But then that's
established
Salat. I mean, it's lost in translation.
No, I mean, I believe the Quran has made it easy for me to understand, irrespective of my ability to.
But I'm just saying the word is Salat. You're saying contact prayer. Somebody else might say sister.
No, Salat by its very definition means contact.
It doesn't.
It means contact, yes, but not prayer.
The root.
So when I say contact prayers, I mean that's interchangeable between Salat prayers.
But I think this is where there might be some difference because if you go to the root, SLH, if you go to that root and you see the detailed explanation of that root, it's like a horse where one horse is in front and the other horse isn't behind it, but is kind of overlapping. This so is where...
You're using the analogy of a horse.
No, this is what the... Because language evolved.
That's what the definition is from last lexicon.
I believe you should trust the messenger with regards to this. You know, I mean, I know it's...
I'm just saying that language evolves. Like we're all sitting here, we might evolve a lingo.
Okay.
Now, it's evolved in a context of us sitting here discussing something.
Can we keep the questions for the speaker who's just done the presentation? Is that
just
okay, just so that we can
I just believe that
go back to
if
that?
language is evolved, and therefore this, whatever we are at this time and place here right now, is therefore specific. So, for example, if we were having this discussion 20 years ago, and language hasn't evolved, or one's understanding of Arabic hasn't evolved to an extent whereby one can make it as greater analysis or interpretation, then you're stuck. I believe that the Quran, indeed religion, Islam, is...
changing over time?
No, I don't believe it evolves. I believe it's specific to any place in time. Yeah. Whether you're living during the time of or live now.
But don't you think the issue with that is that the Arabic at the time of the Prophet, when the Quran was revealed, if you just took a snapshot of that and compared it to the Arabic of the language at the time of Ibrahim, you took it and compared it with the language of Arabic today, you would find a difference. But if you could somehow go to the root origin of the words at that time, which is classical Arabic.
And in your opening very dangerous.
Yeah. Nadia, have you got a question for Yasin?
Yeah, I mean, with the verse about the birds, how do you relate? Like, for example, if you're reading that, birds obviously are not waking up at Fajr listening to the Azan and doing their ruku. So, the contact prayer of Salat, understanding that ayah as meaning birds are doing contact prayer doesn't make sense. So how do you resolve that?
I didn't say contact prayer.
No, I'm just giving an example.
That's fine. Whether they listen to the Razan or whether they wake up early in the morning, birds are up early in the morning, and you know they're always up. Well, you know, by the time when I get up, they're always chirping around.
No, but they're not necessarily doing two regards. That's what I'm saying. So what do you understand their salat as?
This is the point that I was trying to make. That when we look at rakats, or what we look at, again, we're bringing the traditionalist aspect into this, and we're trying to meld that to what a bird might be doing. I mean, I've never seen a bird, you know, do any actions other than walk around and, you know, pick at stuff and stuff like that. When I mentioned the birds, I mentioned about them knowing what their duty is. All right? They know that. We require reminding, and we have the Quran, which actually gives us that reminder. A bird follows its set program, does whatever it needs to do.
Okay, thank you for that. We're going to move on now to the next presentation, which will be from Farouk. It's called Salat, the Quranology View.
Right, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. Very interesting discussion before this. I might actually be a bit, I might be thinking about controversy a bit later on. I mean, I've been in these discussions for a while, but only now I'm starting to use what I call the kitabiyah aspect of the Quran, which is the textual aspect. And I feel that, firstly, if you read a verse in a passage, then secondly, you extrapolate that passage to a whole chapter, what traditionalists call a surah, then you will understand how salat is used in particular chapters and indeed particular passages. So the question, obviously I can't analyze chapters now, there's no time, but I can analyze a few passages just to show you what I mean. We should note that what the Quran focuses on is not accidental. So whatever it doesn't mention is just as important as what it does mention. So going back to Abbas's question earlier, you know, if language has evolved, then, you know, how are we going to get the message? Well, I believe that this text, if we evoke the textual aspect of the Quran, then we can actually get that original meaning, regardless of how language has evolved. So I'll try to demonstrate this with a few examples. My first example is chapter 75, verses 31 to 36. And this is what I call the basic meaning of Salat. It says, فَلَا صَدَّقَ وَلَا صَلَّى. He did not confirm. So he did not confirm, nor did he صَلَّى. وَلَكِنْ كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى. On the contrary, he belied and turned away. So at this point we can see that sadaqah is to confirm something. So your actions confirm the truth. And salah comes after that, before that, which is, salah is to focus on something before you confirm it. Walakin, on the contrary, kadhaba, he belied. So he did not confirm something, instead he belied it. Wa tawalla, and he turned away. So salah is the opposite of tawalla. Tawalla is to turn away from something, to disconnect from something. Salah is to turn towards something or to connect to something. The passage continues. ثُمَّ ذَهَبَ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِ يَتَمَطَّى. Then, so you can see a continuity there, he went towards his people arrogant. So there, you can see that your salah and your sadaqah will change your personality, so much so that you will lose your arrogance. You will be humble towards God. That's the basic meaning of salah. A salah is to focus on something so as to confirm God's laws and to transform yourself. So the passage continues. It says, woe to insan, and woe to insan. So doubly it says that. And verse 36 is very interesting. It says, أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانَ أَنْ يُتْرَكَ سُدًّا, which means, does man think that he will be left uncontrolled? He will be left to his own devices. So what this means is, salah changes your orientation so much so that you will not be left to your own devices. It is to link to something. And to me, the basic meaning of salah is to actually have that link. Whether or not that link is good for you, that's up to you. There are occasions in the Quran where the link is not good for you, it's actually bad for you because of your bad attitude. But that's the basic meaning of salah. And here is what happens when Allah gives you salah. Because Allah actually does salah on you. And that is chapter 2, verse 155 to 157. And it says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. Be sure that we will test you from fear and hunger. وَالنَّقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. And loss from wealth and the soul and fruits. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. And give good news to those who are patient. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَبَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ. Those who, when afflicted with calamity, قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. They say, to Allah we belong, to Him we return. So that's an attitude. They have that attitude. It continues, verse 157. أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ. These are those who have salawat, the link from Allah, or the contact from their Lord. وَالرَّحْمَةِ, and a mercy. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. And they are the guided ones. So there you can see that salawat is a state of connectivity. When it comes from Allah, it's a state of connectivity. These people are unwavering in their focus of Allah. Whatever happens to them, they will always say, to Allah we belong, and to Allah we return. Number 3, my third point is chapter 24, verses 45 to 46. I was going to go a bit further, but there's just no time, so it's just 45 to 46. It says, أَتْلُو مَا أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ. Practice what has been inspired to you, ilayka, so personally, to you, from the book. وَأَقِيمِ الصَّلَاةِ, and establish the connection. إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ. Verily, this connection, the connection will prevent you from injustice and unrecognized acts. So again, salah transforms you, it changes you. وَلَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. And this is dhikr, as Yasin pointed out, it's dhikr. Dhikr to me is vivification. You're bringing Allah to the forefront. And the verse ends very interestingly. It says, وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ مَا تَصْنَعُونَ. Allah knows what you build or construct. This word tasna'un, it comes from sana'a. And Nuh is said to do sana'a to his ship. So it's a construction of something. So when you are practicing from the book, you are establishing a connection and you are building something. The passage continues, وَلَا تُجَادِلُوا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ. And do not argue with the people of the book, إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Except with what is better. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْهُمْ. Except for those who have wronged you. وَقُلُوا آمَنَّا and say, آمَنَّا بِالَّذِي أُنزِلَ إِلَيْنَا وَأُنزِلَ إِلَيْكُمْ. We believe in what has been sent down to us and sent down to you. So they may have a different view of revelation from us. وَإِلَهُنَا وَإِلَهُكُمْ. And وَإِلَهُنَا وَإِلَهُكُمْ وَاحِدٌ. And our Lord and your Lord is one. وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ. And we are to him an agent of wholeness and soundness. So this is what happens when you practice from the book. You are establishing a connection and your acts will bring about wholeness and soundness in society. So that's also part of Salat. Now comes to the bird verse, which I think my view might be somewhat different. I'll just open that. Right. It's very interesting here. It says, Alam tara, do you not see? Anna Allah yusabbihu lahu man fis samawati wal ard. To Allah, they glorify whoever is in the heavens and the earth. Man fis samawati wal ard. So it's whoever and not whatever. So I don't believe that the next phrase, what tayra safat, is actually referring to birds, but rather to people who are able to navigate their destiny, which is the meaning of the word tayyar, destiny. Kullu qad alima salatahu wa tasbihu. Each knows his salat, his means of connection with Allah, and his tasbih, and the work he has to do. So this is the individuality of salat. And it continues, Allah, sorry, I just lost the verse here. It continues, the verse continues to the end and says, Wallahu alimun bima yaf'alun. And Allah knows their yaf'alun, their fa'al. Fa'al means habit, something which you do all the time. So your salat is something which orientates you, habitualizes you towards something. How am I doing for time?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Now I will focus on the salat and its link with the Quran, which I think is quite vital. Right. Here it talks about the descent of the Quran and our link with that descent. It says, chapter 17, verse 105, all the way to the end, which is verse 101. It says, وَبِالْحَقِّ أَنزَلْنَهُ. And with truth we descended it. وَبِالْحَقِّ نَزَلَ. And with truth it descends. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا مُبَشِّرًا وَنَذِيرًا. And we sent you, we did not send you except as a bringer of good tidings and a warner. Now it mentions the Quran. وَقُرْآنًا فَرَقْنَهُ لِتَّقْرَأَ عَلَى النَّاسِ عَلَى مُكْثٍ وَنَزَّلْنَهُ تَنزِيلًا. And the Quran, we divided it. So the Quran is divided by Allah. That is the Bismillah. It's divided by Allah, so that it may be recited upon mankind over a sustained period. وَنَزَّلْنَهُ تَنزِيلًا. And Allah descended it. So here, we can see that when we recite the Quran, according to its divisions, it will facilitate our understanding or revelation from it. Kul aminu bihi aw la tu'minu. Say whether you believe in it or not. Inna alladhina ulul ilm min qablihi. Verily those who were given knowledge of it from before, idha yutla alayhim yakhruna lil adqani sujjada. When it is recited to them, they will fall on their chins in humility. وَيَقُولُونَ سُبْحَانَ رَبِّنَا. And they will say, glory be to our Lord. So they will understand it. They will actually understand the revelation of the Quran. إِن كَانَ وَعْدَ رَبِّنَا لَمَفْعُولًا. Verily the promise of Allah is fulfilled. يَخِرُّونَ لِلْأَدْقَانِ يَبْكُونَ. They will fall on their chins in tears. وَيَزِيدُهُمْ خُشُوعًا, and it will increase their focus. So you can see here, it's an experience of the Quran. How does this relate to Salah? It's the next ayah, verse 1110, which was actually mentioned earlier as well. قُلْ أَدْعُوا اللَّهِ وَأَدْعُوا الرَّحْمَنِ أو أَدْعُوا الرَّحْمَنِ. Invoke Allah or invoke Ar-Rahman. أَيَّمَا تَدْعُونَ فَلَهُ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى. Whatever names you call him, to him belong the most beautiful names. وَلَا تَجْهَرْ بِصَلَاتِكَ وَلَا تُخَفِّتْ بِهَا وَأَبْتَغِي بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ سَبِيلًا. And do not be too overt with your salah, with your connection. So you have that connection now through reading the Quran. Do not be too overt with it or do not hide it, but seek a way in between. So there you go. This is the way we connect with through the Quran. We connect to Allah and establish salah. How do you start?
That's perfect.
That's perfect. Okay. So I'm afraid I can't do the rest, but I'll open the floor to questions. So thank you.
Okay, so who would like to ask for a question about what he's just presented?
I have a question, but I want to let anybody else. Okay, so basically when you were reading the various ayahs and you were saying that this is what Salat means, were you in your mind also drawing from its root?
Yes. To me, the root is where I start. I refine my understanding of the root through the text. So I see the meaning.
Starting point is
The starting point is how it's used. Yeah. That contact seems to concord with the meaning of the text. So there are various ways we make contact.
So can I ask you this, like, if you could just summarize, how does that root origin? Because I mean, I could judge from the response that it sounds funny to say that Salat is originating from a root that means horses that are very close to each other and overlapping. How in the language have you gone from that root to the understanding of what Salat is, as you explained?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily buy the horses thing, but if you want to believe in the horses thing, the nose of the second horse must touch the behind, which is probably not very pleasant, of the first horse. So
this is from Lane's lexicon.
Yeah, that's fine, but it's contact. So to me, that contact is the opposite of tawalla. Tawalla is to lose contact. So salah is to make contact. And as you can see, you get salawat from Allah. So Allah is making contact with you, so much so that you are firm on the path.
Because it conjures up a vision of, you know, when you stand in Salat, shoulder to shoulder, foot to foot, there's that unbroken contact from one person to the next.
Okay. But I think textually it's more towards contact with Allah through the Quran, through your actions. It's actually, Salat is a multiple level of contact. And sadly, I was not able to go through Salat brackets. But Yasin mentioned a bit of it earlier, how Salat actually leads to actions in society. And you know, that like two statements with Salat as acting as brackets, and between, you can see, that's chapter 23 verses 1 to 11 and chapter 70 verses 19 to 35. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to do that. That would have helped.
What you just mentioned there, Nadia, about Salat and the horses, it reminded me of the verse that Farouk will probably know. It's the one about race to the good. You know, when you racing towards what is it?
Like racing steeds.
Yeah.
Just reminded me of that. Has anybody else got any questions about what Farouk said in his talk?
Yes.
I didn't understand your point about Salah through Quran.
Oh, well, okay. It's like this. When you recite the Quran according to the means prescribed by Allah, because it says, فَرَقْنَهُ, we divided it. So when the Quran is divided, it's in the name of Allah, i.e. Bismillah. So when you read a complete chapter, you are facilitating the understanding of the message of that chapter. And when you do, you get that feeling of revelation, and it will cause submission. And that's Salah.
Any more questions?
And by the way, I'm not saying that you can't do that with the ritual. I'm not saying that. If you recite in the ritual, you're reciting probably shorter surahs, and you get revelation, and then you bow with tears and humility, that's Salah.
Do you think that explanation is also possible, as well as the fact that we read Quran, it's revealed to us in stages, meaning, you know, what we're understanding today, maybe after 1 year, we'll have a new level of understanding.
It's very organic like that. It's very organic.
I mean, does that Arabic ayah support that?
Yeah, because it says وَنَزَّلْنَهُ تَنزِيلًا. Yeah, it's very stage by stage descent. You know? So
you must remember, Muhammad took 23 years, according to history, for Allah Ta'ala to teach him. In one night, he got him in his subconscious, and then for 23 years while reading Iqra. That is a very important command in the Quran, the most important, in my opinion, to read, so that Allah teach us, not Khatibs.
Any more questions, or should we move on to the next presentation? Did you have a question?
No.
No? Okay. Right, so